Under the glow of stadium lights, Ella Swift stood at the edge of the field, her sneakers tapping nervously against the track. The roar of the crowd echoed in her chest, a mix of nerves and anticipation coursing through her veins. In this small American town, Friday nights belonged to football, but tonight Ella was about to steal the show. She adjusted her sequined jacket and exhaled, her eyes scanning the cheering fans. Coach Harper, the team's gruff but dependable leader, approached with a steady gaze. "Nerves don't win games, Ella. Show them what you've got." His words were sharp, but there was warmth beneath them, a reminder that this was her moment. Ella nodded, inhaling deeply as the announcer's voice boomed across the stadium. The music started, and she stepped forward, the 50-yard line her stage. As spotlights followed her every move, Ella began to dance, her rhythm syncing with the heartbeat of the crowd. Spins, slides, and sharp movements kept the audience spellbound. The energy was electric, each move a spark that ignited the cheering fans. From the sidelines, Kyle Jones, the star quarterback clad in his red jersey, watched intently. His helmet under his arm, he couldn't tear his eyes away from her. "She's got more fight in her than most players I know," he thought to himself, a smirk tugging at his lips. Ella slid across the stage, a sharp squeak of her sneakers momentarily breaking the flow. She wobbled for half a second, but her radiant smile masked the misstep. Never let them see you falter, she reminded herself, her confidence growing with every cheer. Her routine was nearing its climax when her gaze caught Kyle's. Standing at the edge of the field, he extended his hand toward her. Time seemed to freeze. Is he serious? Ella thought, her heart pounding louder than the music. The moment stretched as the crowd hushed, watching the unspoken exchange. With a deep breath, Ella leapt from the stage, landing gracefully in front of him. Kyle grinned, the kind of smile that could light up an entire stadium. "Thought you might need a little extra spotlight," he teased. Ella rolled her eyes, but couldn't hide her smirk. "I think I was doing just fine on my own," she shot back. But before she could say another word, Kyle scooped her into his arms, the crowd erupting into deafening cheers. "Hold on tight," he said with a wink. "It's time to score." Ella laughed, her arms tightening around his shoulders as he took off running. With each step toward the end zone, the stadium roared louder, their chants blending into a single thunderous cry, "Touchdown, touchdown." As Kyle crossed the goal line, he gently set her down, their shared laughter cutting through the chaos. It was a moment that would be etched in the town's history, not for the game, but for the performance that united them all. The next morning, sunlight streamed into Ella's bedroom as her phone buzzed incessantly on her bedside table. Groaning, she reached for it, squinting at the barrage of notifications. Clips of her halftime performance, the slide, and Kyle's touchdown carry had gone viral. Ella. Her best friend Mia's voice blared through the phone. "You're all over social media. People are calling you the queen of halftime." Ella sat up, scrolling through the videos. The comments were filled with praise and excitement, and for the first time she allowed herself to smile. "Queen of halftime, huh, I'll take it," she muttered. A knock at the door broke her thoughts. Opening it, she found Kyle standing there, holding a football signed by the entire team. "Thought you might want a souvenir from last night," he said, his grin as confident as ever. Ella crossed her arms, feigning annoyance. "A football. I'm a dancer, not a quarterback." Kyle leaned against the doorframe, unbothered. "True, but you carried the whole team last night. I think you deserve it." Later that day, Ella found herself in the high school gym, the bleachers packed with students and teachers for a surprise assembly. The principal stood at the podium, smiling warmly. "Last night's game was unforgettable," he began, but not just because of the score. "Let's hear it for Ella Swift, our halftime star." The crowd erupted in applause, and Ella's cheeks flushed as she was motioned to the stage. Kyle nudged her from his spot in the bleachers. "Go on, Ella, they're waiting." She hesitated, her nerves threatening to take over. "This isn't my thing," she whispered. Kyle shrugged. Neither was football last night, but you nailed it. Summoning her courage, Ella walked to the stage, the applause lifting her spirits. Thank you, she began, her voice steady. I never imagined my dancing would lead to, well, whatever that was last night, but I'm so glad it did. The gym erupted in cheers, and for the first time Ella felt like a true star. As she left the gym, the excitement still buzzing in her ears, a man in a sleek suit approached her. Ella Swift, he asked, extending his hand. I'm Mr. Reynolds, a talent scout for the National Dance Academy. I saw your performance last night and was blown away. Ella froze, her heart skipping a beat. Wait, you're serious? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Reynolds nodded completely. We're holding auditions next month, and I'd like you to attend. Ella's gaze flicked to Kyle, who stood nearby with an encouraging smile. You've got this, he said simply. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of preparation. Ella practiced tirelessly in her living room, her movements growing sharper and more precise with each session. Mia cheered her on, while Kyle offered playful encouragement. If all else fails, he joked, tossing her the signed football, just slide into the end zone again. Finally, the day of the audition arrived. The Grand Theater was packed with hopeful dancers, each one as nervous as Ella felt. Standing in the wings, she took a deep breath, steadying herself. This is it, she thought. Everything I've worked for comes down to this moment. The music started and Ella stepped onto the stage, her movements fluid and full of emotion. Each spin, each leap told a story, captivating the judges and audience alike. In the balcony, Kyle and Mia watched with pride. She's unstoppable, Kyle whispered, his admiration clear. As the routine ended, the theater erupted in applause. Ella stood breathless, her chest heaving as the lead judge smiled and nodded. She had done it. Later, as she stepped out into the crisp evening air, Kyle and Mia were waiting with wide grins. Kyle handed her a bouquet of flowers. Told you you're a star, he said. Ella smiled, her heart full as she looked out at the city lights. Thanks for believing in me, she said softly. I couldn't have done it without you. As fireworks lit up the night sky, Ella knew this was only the beginning. Her leap of faith had taken her further than she'd ever dreamed. And somewhere under those same glowing lights, her story continued to inspire. And so, as the fireworks lit up the sky, Ella smiled, knowing her story was written in the stars. I had the time of my life fighting dragons with you whispered through her mind as her dreams unfolded like a fairy tale long live. She thought of the nights she had danced alone, but now realized you and I got lost in it was her truth, the archer. The best people in life are free, she reminded herself, grounded by her journey, new romantics. She had embraced every misstep, knowing you can't spell awesome without me. The stadium roars, her stage falls, and You Belong With Me sang the crowd's devotion, You Belong With Me. Ella breathed in the moment, I'd be just like a tattooed heart on this field forever all too well. In the silence of her mind, she laughed, knowing that the story of us looks a lot like a tragedy now was once her greatest fear, the story of us. But no longer, instead, this night is sparkling, Don't You Let It Go became her mantra enchanted. She found her footing with Shake It Off as her anthem Shake It Off, realizing, finally, that we're happy, free, confused, and lonely in the best way was the story she wanted to live 22. And as Kyle handed her the flowers with a grin, Ella knew her legacy was her own to write.
And so, as the fireworks lit up the sky, Ella smiled, knowing her story was written in the stars. I had the time of my life, fighting dragons with you, whispered through her mind as her dreams unfolded like a fairy tale. She thought of the night she had danced alone, but now realized you and I got lost and it was her truth. The best people in life are free, she reminded herself, grounded by her journey. She had embraced every misstep, knowing you can't spell awesome without me. The stadium roars, her stage falls, and you belong with me, sang the crowd's devotion. Ella breathe in the moment, I'd be just like a tattooed heart on this field forever. In the silence of her mind she laughed, knowing that the story of us looks a lot like a tragedy now, was once her greatest fear. But no longer, instead this night is sparkling, and don't you let it go became her mantra. She found her footing with Shake It Off as her anthem, realizing finally that we're happy, free, confused and lonely in the best way, was the story she wanted to live. And as Kyle handed her the flowers with a grin, Ella knew her legacy was her own.